We created a campaign, and we called it Legacy, because we were interested in something that demonstrated something long-lasting. How many of you know that Christchurch had an earthquake? Did you all realise that? Yes, you sort of kind of realise that. It's nowhere near as big as some other people's earthquakes. But the thing that what happened in Christchurch was that actually the city, nobody had a clue that Christchurch was sitting on a fault line. So it kind of came out of the blue. And part of what happened was that the city centre got almost completely demolished. We've had to take down about 700 buildings in the city centre. And the miraculous thing is that actually only 118 people died. Now I think it's always sad, obviously, when people die, and there are other countries where huge numbers of people have died in earthquakes, but only 118 happened in New Zealand. And actually that was in 2 buildings. The vast majority were in 2 buildings which had been really badly built and signed off by an engineer and also the local authority, which is slightly worrying. So we have a huge focus on seismic strengthening in New Zealand at the moment. I thought I'd tell you a little bit about... Oh, sorry, I'm going to have to remember. Just to tell you quickly, a lot of the buildings, were, the strength was impacted, and so they had to bring down a whole load of buildings. This is a picture of one of the hotels having to be brought down, and as I said, it was about 700 buildings across the CBD, and you saw the picture of what that actually looks like now. So we have a huge kind of parking lot areas where there's lots of space. What happened initially was that a whole load of people that lived in Christchurch were in a very dire situation. So their homes were destroyed and they had nowhere to live. So we had the government rallying around really, really quickly and trying to build them temporary accommodation. But we still have significant numbers of people not living in great circumstances and with homes that have not been rebuilt yet. So one of the things that the local authority did was they created something called a Share an Idea campaign. And I'll come back to that one. So the Share an Idea campaign was to try and kind of get people to be focus on something that they could look forward to in the future. And so they set up this campaign, and what people had to do was put forward all their ideas about what they want the city to look like. And this was pushed forward by the city council. Now the unfortunate thing about the city council was that we have a central government that tried very desperately to undermine our city council. And so you had this political situation where you had one group pulling in one direction and another group pulling in the opposite direction. The Share an Idea campaign was very successful because it created a sense of community. So all the people knew and were very clear about what they wanted. And one of the clearest things that they wanted was a green city rebuilt. So you fast forward about 2 or 3 years, 2.5 years, and the central government has effectively totally removed sustainability from any of the rebuild features. So we've been working quite hard behind the scenes trying to change that. But actually, when you look at what's going on, sustainability doesn't feature at all. So we decided that we needed to change that situation and kind of regenerate and renew people's ideas and interests about this sustainable city. And so that's where the Legacy campaign came in. So the council had promised to create a campaign at some point, and they asked us to do it. And so what we did was we set up a collaborative situation. So we asked a number of different organisations to come and join us. These are the founding organisations. So clearly we're there, but we also included City Council. We also included the Property Council, who are the property developers in New Zealand, and obviously going to be doing the rebuilding of the main commercial centre. And then also the Canterbury Employers Chamber of Commerce. So clearly putting those people together was really, really critical. Interestingly enough, central government did not want to join this group. They actually declined. So you've got this situation where you've actually got a whole number of organisations who do want to do something. We followed, when I was looking at what Lee put up earlier on when he was talking about collaborative partnerships, And it was really nice that a lot of those things that those steps that he suggested everybody takes when setting up some kind of partnership, we were doing. So we created a mission and a vision that was shared, and made sure that everybody was happy with that vision and mission. And when you're thinking about the rebuild, a number of people said to us, "Oh, this should all be about certified buildings." We actually came to the conclusion that this was not about certified buildings. This was actually just about encouraging the building and construction sector and generally industry to commit to being in a sustainable city. So it wasn't about certification, and it wasn't about saying I'm going to do a green building, but it was about generally committing to sustainability in the built environment, and in Christchurch in specific. So the Legacy has its own website. We mutually came up with the title and the logo, the Legacy, the future's being built, and it's got the green, but that's about the only allusion to green that there is. And essentially what we were asking companies to do was literally just to sign up. So you can go online and you can demonstrate your commitment straight away. Now, we did have people that were a little bit worried about greenwash, because you don't actually have to do anything to sign up to this. You just have to kind of demonstrate your commitment in some way. So we're saying, what's your sustainability policy? Or possibly, are you going to be in a green building? Or, what's your commitment essentially? And so we have a growing number of companies that have signed up. Now, Christchurch in New Zealand is quite a small, insular kind of city. And so being on the ground in Christchurch and not being an Aucklander coming in is really important. So we've just recently employed a Canterbury rebuild manager to manage this campaign for us and all of our other Christchurch work. And so what he's going to be doing is taking this forward. Now, this is reasonably early for us. We only have been going for, I think we launched in June. So all I can say is that we've got about 30 companies that have already signed up. And it seems to be kind of escalating week by week. Now, I think we had reasonably low expectations, because the mood in the city is very changeable. And yet it's really surprised us. So I thought I'd give you a few top tips about what I thought was important about doing this. I thought the first thing was around the clarity of your message and the purpose of what you're trying to do. As I said before, we decided it wasn't about certified buildings. It was actually just about being in a sustainable city. And so it was reinvigorating and connecting that Share an Idea campaign, where all the community said we want a green city, and kind of reminding industry that is what they had committed to delivering. Clearly, early stakeholder involvement, getting the right groups involved right from the beginning, is kind of important. And the strong look and the feel, and I don't want to underestimate, you don't want to spend huge amounts of money on branding, but actually having a brand and having a website makes a huge difference. And so we found that was really important. And then the other thing, of course, is having enough money to keep going, because it's all very well to start this, but actually you have to sustain it. You have to sustain your website. You have to sustain the amount of conversations that you're having with people to try and persuade them. And being really honest, right now we have been struggling to sustain it, because council had promised us money, and it's taken us about 3 months to get some more money. But I literally got a text message earlier on today to say that they have actually decided to give us some more money to keep going, which is great. Some of the things that I think that we could do better next time is, I reckon that the partners need to feel a stronger ownership over this. So it tends to be us leading the conversation quite a lot. And I think probably I would spend longer on the process and getting the partners to the point where they actually really do feel like they own it, rather than they're just participating in it. There's a subtle difference, but I think it's really important. I think the other thing is, don't assume that it's going to have a life of its own, because actually you have to keep working at it. You can't just put it out there and hope it will happen. You actually have to keep working at it and keep coming up with new ways to remind people, to remind the press that it's interesting, to keep it in people's heads. And also to have a plan on how you should keep it dynamic. And one of the things that we're thinking about, this right now is focused on industry, And of course, there are also a whole load of homes in New Zealand or homes in Christchurch that need rebuilding. So actually, how do we start getting that consumer connection, which of course is much more difficult and much more expensive, but that's one of the things that we're thinking about. Okay, so I've already answered my own question. What next was, we're going to go for the residential side of things. Just so you can understand, that left-hand picture of the map, those red areas are all the areas of houses that have been abandoned, essentially. It's very eerie. You can drive around those areas and the houses are all still standing, and yet nobody is living in them. And we have, obviously, situations where you can see that one side of the road is a red zone, the other side of the road is a green zone, so people who've got their neighbours, one side has been paid out and the other side hasn't. It's quite a bizarre situation. But essentially, we need to focus on the residential sector next. So that's what we're thinking about doing, is adding that to the campaign. Thank you. That was it.
Thank you.